All right, now that we've got problem 311 drawn, let's go back in for just a second and let's explore this idea here of the actual pattern a little bit more. So I'm going to come back down into my timeline, right click, edit rectangular pattern. And you've seen here how we have a 1 inch spacing for two holes. I can change that to 3. Notice how it kind of divides and brings this separate holes in this way. Let's change this distribution. So that's what we call an extent. So I can also say I want that to be the spacing. So, and in this case, it gives me a 1/2 inch spacing of those 3 holes. So, but I could make that 1 inch and it's going to spread those out. So like that in this case. So just a difference between our extent here versus the spacing. So let's change this now from 2 inch extent to back to the 1 inch here. And we noticed that it said one direction as far as our axis one of being 1 inch. We could say 1 inch, or we can make this symmetric. So it kind of takes it both ways. So depending on what you're doing, where your axis points are, how you want to take a look at the frame of reference on that, you can have that several different ways here. Now, we also have this second axis feature. So if I go here now, in this case, if I want to increase these holes, notice which direction it's kind of going in terms of that way. So in order to change that, so we can say, well, what if I wanted it to be this way? So we can kind of play around with this as well. So I'm going to hit cancel on this, and actually I'm going to delete out that particular feature. We're going to kind of come back here one more time, and we're going to use this rectangular patterning tool again. So here is the rectangular pattern. So notice I have a circular pattern, or I can also use a pattern on the path. So in this case, it wants the object or the feature. So we do have different types of things that we can pattern: bodies, faces, features, or components. So for example, if I were doing an assembly drawing and I had a bunch of socket head cap screws, so maybe I could use those different screws to do this linear pattern. But in this case, it is the feature. And the feature that I want here, if I kind of go through here, is the actual hole itself. So I'm putting it in my isometric view so I can see it and pick up on that feature. So I'm clicking right there on that feature. Now, another way I could do that would be to come down here in my timeline and select it there as well. Notice it's kind of highlighted at that point too. All right, I'm going to come back into my front view just so we can kind of see what's going on. Now, it wants me to select an axis. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to select this axis for my distribution. Now notice it gives me both of these axes here as well. Now in our case, we wanted this to be let's say 3, and I'm going to set my dimension at 1 inch here. And we can kind of do the same thing here. Now notice as we kind of draw this out, so we can kind of do the same thing going in both of those dimensions. Let's make this 2 instead. So kind of bring this back up here with this. So maybe I want to go 3 across at 1 inch spacing down here. I only want to have the 3, but the distance I want them to be down here will be 1 inch instead. So we can kind of make some changes here to actually place this in that change. Now 1 inch is a little too much here. Let's say 0.75. Kind of split stuff up. So notice it didn't really like that. So it's not kind of giving us everything there. Notice on the back side. So from the front, it looks like we are good to go. But on the back, as we rotate this around, so I'm going to hit the shift and press down on my wheel on the, and I can see, all right, well, I've got that pattern, but it's not going all the way through. So So let's kind of come back and take a look here, back to the pattern, right click, edit this rectangular feature. What's going on here with this, and why can't it only go to that point? Well, part of this is because when we started the whole pattern, we started and we did it on this surface. So it's not going to come back in here. If we needed this to go all the way through, we should have probably put it and started it either on, let me click OK for right now. We should have either started on this surface if we wanted these to go all the way through, or we should have started and did it on the back surface to make them go all the way through. But because of the way we started with the drawing, as far as the sketch tool and the holes, we started on this surface, so it's only going to recognize that. So if we really wanted to kind of change this, we would have to go back to that hole. So let me go back and edit this hole. And now instead of a distance here and saying the extent all or our reference here, we could kind of come in and say, well, we really wanted this to be, instead of going to all, maybe we wanted it to be 2, maybe we did want this to be a distance, and we could kind of start and change this around to be where it was symmetric on both sides of this. So there are a couple of different ways that you got to kind of think about how you want that position to be. Now, again, we know that that's not the pattern that we want anyway, so let's go back and fix this pattern. So I don't want 3 holes. I only want 2. So, no, or I only want 1 in axis 2 here, and I want 2 in axis 1. So now we can say, all right, we're fixed. So this is the way our view should look, and this gives you hopefully a little bit better understanding of the patterning tool and using the patterning tool here when we're talking about the rectangular pattern in Fusion.